Is it an epic or epic failure? The Big Review. Movies, games, and TV in focus.
Pulse 95.
A couple of weeks ago, Mikhail and I came across the trailer of Over the Moon, a 2020 computer-animated musical adventure comedy drama created by Netflix Animation in collaboration with Sony Interactive as well as Pearl Studio. It is about a little girl, her name is Fei Fei, who loses her mother, and she is also super fascinated by the mythology or the story of the moon goddess Chang'e, who basically ends up drinking a mortality potion that has her leave her lover Hou Yi and live in the moon, where she has been waiting for him for thousands and thousands of years. I'm gonna start off and say I am super angry at everybody who gave this a bad review.
Who review bombed it, yeah.
6 out of 10 from IMDb. Really? That one shocked me. The cast aside.
Yeah.
Everything was so fascinating and so mesmerizing. And the story, just like so we were talking about it, it had so much value to it.
Exactly. Just Fei Fei and her determination to prove the existence of the moon goddess was something that I was really invested in. And I was thinking, as the movie went along, I'm like, is this really happening, or is this all in her head? Mm-hmm. But then you kind of just suspend disbelief and just enjoy the story for what it's trying to tell you.
Yeah.
It's a girl who is still grieving, who's still holding on, and is just not willing to move forward. Mm-hmm. And in a way, I kind of relate to that. So seeing her adventure to go into to the moon and meet Chang, I would say was like my most favorite part, because you think you think moon goddess, you think like a divine person.
Yeah.
But she ended up being just like
she was a diva.
A diva, yeah.
Yes, I love that so much.
She's like, I'm waiting for my true love. I'm waiting. Did he bring me my gift? And so she goes on this little unexpected quest to find the gift, and they're like, what is this gift? What does it mean? Is it like metaphorical? Is it a physical thing? But it's almost like Fei Fei and Chang are parallel in terms of their situation. Like they're both going through the same struggle, and that's what I really like, is that at the end of the film they feel like they learn from one another.
Yes, that is like we said earlier, that grief was a massive theme throughout this entire movie, because just like I said earlier, she loses her mother due to some disease. So it was all about her father, and herself, and her mother. They were just one whole unit. And then suddenly she had to lose this important figure in her life, and she held on to the one thing that made them all together, that whole unit, which is the story of Chang'e and being on the moon, and the entirety of basically being faithful and being patient. And it's just so beautiful and lovely to see it from the perspective of a child, a grieving child, and the stages she goes through throughout the 1 hour and 40 minutes of the entire movie, where she basically goes from being incredibly stubborn and very sad until acceptance that just life moves on, and I also need to move on with life and keep up and also be loved, so I do not be left alone in the middle of nowhere, because people will leave you eventually. And sometimes the love you're seeking is not the love that you see in front of you. And even at the end of the movie, I don't want to ruin it for anybody, because spoiler-free reviews right here on the Afternoon Karak. And it is that even when Chang'e was showing her grief, she realizes herself that the people who love her aren't only just the people she left on Earth, but the people and the creatures she is surrounded with up on the moon. And it was such an important thing, because Fei Fei herself was pushing away new people entering her life who were ready to accept her with open arms. She just pushed them away, because she had in her head it was about her mother, and her father, and nobody can provide her the love that she thought she deserved. We're going to be taking a short break.
I'm actually getting goosebumps when he said that.
Really? I'm not even gonna exaggerate, but I had goosebumps throughout the music. When they were singing, just goosebumps everywhere.
We got to talk about that.
Yes, the music, the animation, the cast. Oh my God, the cast. I have a lot to say about that and so much more after this short break, so stay tuned for the continuation of the review of Over the Moon on Netflix. Stay tuned.
Pulse 95.
We are continuing our review of the latest Netflix animated feature film, Over the Moon, the story of a grieving child looking to journey to the moon to prove the existence of a moon goddess. But in that journey, she discovers that she is pretty much sharing that same struggle that the goddess is going through as well. And what I like about this movie, and I was surprised, and I didn't even look it up, and I think even the trailer didn't hint to it, is that this is kind of a musical in a way.
Yeah, it was a very, very beautiful musical. And Philippa Soo plays Changa. Philippa Soo is, she plays Eliza in Hamilton. So when I saw that it was her, I was like, no wonder she sounds, so ethereal and so amazing. It's Philippa Soo.
Yeah.
And also, we spoke about this back when the trailer came out, and that Changa's, her costumes are actually haute couture. It was actually designed by a famous Chinese designer, Go Pei. And I love the idea, the whole thing, the way they show Chinese culture and Chinese mythology.
Yeah.
From an outsider's point of view, because obviously I'm not of Chinese descent or Western Asian descent, but not East Asian descent.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, I thought that this is a beautiful way of appreciating the culture and showing the culture to everybody else. And all those small details just made me just appreciate it so much more than Mulan. But yeah, it was such a beautiful movie, super highly underrated. Even the animation, goodness, it was gorgeous. It made, Pixar run for its money. That's how good it was.
Keep a lookout for Pearl Studios. Really great job. And one thing I wanted to add to the musical part is that every song felt like it was shaping the identity.
Yes, it was basically added to the narrative like a true musical is.
And there is one of them, the one with the ping pong fight.
Yes.
It's not really related, but still, I love it. It was, just that one and Ultra. It's
Ultraluminary.
Ultraluminary. That was a surprise. I was like, okay, I'm really paying attention now. And I think this is one of the songs I'll actually be putting into my music playlist because it was really good.
The one I liked was Rocket to the Moon because it just felt, like you said, it envelops the entire story and it enhances it.
Yeah.
It truly felt like I'm watching a musical, like an actual Broadway show or an off-Broadway show. This is exactly how musicals should be, where it just enhances the entire story and adds to the narrative. Enjoyed it so much. The cast was also fantastic. Ken Jeong played that weird kind of dog from the moon.
Is it a dog? I think it was an armadillo. I'm not sure.
It's a pangolin apparently.
Okay.
He's a pangolin.
What I liked about it is the way the world building was made is that you discover a lot of the sentient beings that are in this world are from the tears of Chang herself. And it just shows like she's been in grief for a very long time.
Thousands of years, 3,000 years, I believe. Such a beautiful movie. Final rating?
Honestly, I'd give it a solid 8. It's got a lot of heart. It's embroidered with just enough Chinese mythology that it doesn't overwhelm you, and at its core, it's got an endearing message about familyhood, about loss, and moving forward.
True, and it's just a beautiful movie, and I agree with you, 8 out of 10 for me as well. Loved it so much. Everybody should be watching it, and I believe as well, one of the animators is, I think the head animator or the producer, I can't remember, is actually used to work in Disney Animation, so there was that tiny touch. But honestly, this just shows that Sony and Pearl Studios are, they're fantastic in their own way, and that they're amazing, and that they can also produce some things that are as beautiful, as impactful as Pixar, especially since for the past couple of years, all we've seen from Pixar are just sequels after sequels after sequels.
Yeah.
And nothing that solid.
Hopefully Soul could change our mind.
Maybe that could work out. Maybe, maybe not. I don't have much hopes for Soul. It doesn't feel like that sort of movie that is calling me to it. Especially, the fact that it's going to be released on home media does not change my mind. I've been advocating for releases on streaming service throughout this entire pandemic. MGM, Warner Brothers, and all of these. I've been saying, release stuff online. It's easier. But no, I don't feel like Soul might be it. until then, we've got Over the Moon, and whatever Sony is throwing our way and whatever Pearl Studio is throwing our way, it's just beautiful. I'm okay and content with what we have, and this is our review of Over the Moon. It is on Netflix, released only a couple of days ago. Check it out, whether you're a kid, you're a teenager, you're older. It's a beautiful family movie, just like Mikhail said, about loss, grief, family, and love. We're going to be continuing talking about the moon. We've got some more moon announcements right here on the afternoon Karak, so stay tuned for that.
Pulse 95.
This upcoming story makes me really, it just puts a smile on my face because this officially, in a way, debunks Aisha's theory of the moon being a cheese, just a big planetary cheese for some reason.
Have you never seen soft cheese before?
Hardened cheese? I don't know.
There's a lot. Mikhail, cheeses come in different consistencies.
Yeah, but does cheese have a surface of water?
Yes. Soft cheese has a surface of water.
Let's
I mean, feta cheese. Feta cheese literally comes, usually there's water with it, and you wash it off to remove the salt.
I hate when she debunks my debunking. It's just I achieve nothing.
I'm telling you, the moon is a piece of intergalactic cheese, and I stand by that.
Okay, and Vice also stands by it because there's reports now that scientists are confirming, and they've even announced that there is water present on a sunlit surface of the moon.
Congratulations to the moon.
Actually, that's
so happy for you.
That implies a lot of things,
Yeah.
and I think it has to do with the fact that it makes future missions possibly easier because there is now like base resources that they can utilize and even allow the astronauts to colonize the place for a bit longer than usual and find a way to kind of just preserve it and reproduce it in that space instead of having to always ship do like these
Supplies and
interplanetary exchange. And I can't even imagine the shipping costs.
Shipping costs, because we were talking about shipping costs earlier, and sometimes shipping costs can be, well, quite costly.
Yikes, indeed.
Yeah, but like you said, this means that the moon can be like sort of a supply hub for future interplanetary or future space missions, where instead of having to get stuff from Earth or stuff from the International Space Station, which itself can only hold on to so many things, they can use the moon as a base. But hopefully, inshallah, they treat the moon nicely. Don't be mean to the moon. Do not leave waste. This is like obviously to all these international space agencies across the entire world, including the one in the UAE, because we need to advocate for moon rights, right?
Oh my God.
Moon rights. Take care of the moon.
You know, I say it's weird now, but give it 50 years or so, and I think if the moon does become a habitable space, then there's obviously going to be some laws drafted for this kind of stuff.
Obviously, especially I feel like space laws are very, very rigid, especially since you don't want to, or you cannot, or should not be occupying a planet or occupying something in space and claiming it as yours, especially when there are like 120, 150 countries that also exist on Earth. It has to be a shared space, similar to how Antarctica is, that nobody really owns that continent. Just everybody comes back and forth, and they have specific duration. And it's all about globalization, intermingling, and sharing cultures and whatnot. So hopefully now we can all continue this celebration up on the moon. So be careful with the moon. She's very delicate. She's very cheesy.
100 years from now, there's going to be like a whole global coalition of countries who rely on the moon for its main most rare substance, its resource. It's moon cheese.
Moon cheese. No, but it goes back, like I said, we should take care of the moon. So nobody is going to be harvesting moon cheese.
By the way, I'm going to call you out. When the day comes.
You think we're going to be alive in 100 years?
Probably there's going to be a hyperloop to the moon.
And you and I can just take
I'll go there, I'll get a knife and just cut through the surface.
And be like, see, does this look like it's edible to you, Aisha? I mean, it's okay. You can eat whatever you want.
Space delicacy.
Space delicacy. Intergalactic delicacy. Guys, text us 4215 Etisalat or do you think the moon is made of cheese? Because I totally believe it is. I don't care what anybody says.
I'm
It
still
is.
baffled by this conviction, but I'll let it slide.
Listen, sometimes you want to believe in something, and this is one of the things I want to believe in.
Why not?
Why not? Coming up next, we're going to be talking about anime and CGI and why a lot of anime producing companies might not actually migrate towards it. Let's talk about that right after this short break.
This is Pulse 95.
Lupin the Third is a very popular series of films that was inspired by Steven Spielberg's Indiana Jones. It brims with all sorts of action-adventure stories, and over the years, and I would say almost like it's generational, Lupin the Third has sort of evolved, but always remained 2D in its most purest form.
Yeah.
The latest Lupin the Third, the first, which is directed by Takashi Yamazaki, is going to be full CG, 3D CGI, and I don't mind it at all. I think it's in Lupin the Third itself. It's a necessary evolution, but Japan is still somewhere in the realms of not being wowed by CG just yet. There's still that perspective that 2D animation is here to stay for a very long time.
I think it goes back to the whole CG being more of a Western phenomena. People are more, I wouldn't call them purists. That's not fair to call them that. But they just have, they just depend on it. That's what they grew up on, this 2D animation, which in itself is usually very gorgeous and beautiful in its own way. It doesn't necessarily require a CG. And I feel like not any movie and not any director can take a vision from a 2D vision to CG very successfully. And Yamazaki actually, he was inspired by Spielberg and Tintin, and you saw how beautiful Tintin was created.
Yeah.
And we can see the same thing in Lupin the Third, because in this iteration, what they did was that they still kept the whole caricature in the sense that Lupin is very animated, and so are every single character in that anime. So they're very movement oriented. They're very vocal. Physically expressions.
And
all
more
of that.
flashy.
Exactly. So how do you translate that with CG, where usually CGI is all about being very realistic and less about that? So I love the fact that he kept the essence of 2D animation and moved it towards CG, which again, is super, super smart of him and a very beautiful way to pay an homage to a well-known series. Now, we have seen a lot of companies producing anime in Japan who have been moving towards, 3D animation and CGI, and it's a small work in progress. And I was just talking to my friends about it because Netflix announced a whole lineup of anime coming soon to their platform, and a good chunk of them had 3D animation. And to some of them, including one that is actually Pacific Rim. They're actually turning Pacific Rim into an anime, and it's 3D, and I hated it.
Ew.
I do not like it. So it's like a hit or miss, and lately it's been more misses than hits. They're still working on it. We have Hoseki no Kuni, who is well known as one of those anime that were very successful in the way they adapted CGI to some people. To me, I wasn't a big fan of it. I felt like I still needed to kind of accept it yet. Beastars or Beastars is also the same thing in the sense that they're also incorporating CGI into or 3D animation into anime. I'm trying to remember the one I watched that I hated so much because they tried to incorporate both 2D and 3D. It was the one about the Zodiacs. Basically, it was a whole fighting action kind of anime. So it would have been perfect for CG, but it just did not work out.
I can see why it's still struggling to woo audiences in Japan.
Yeah.
And I think one part of it is the vision and then the execution.
True.
And when you have a vision, how do you want to execute? Do you want to do it 3D or you want to go 2D?
Yeah.
And which one can really, capitalize on that vision and give something that's worthwhile? And CG is still a bit risky, and I think we're still trying to perfect it. We're still trying to master it and really put it out there. When it comes to Hollywood, it's all about live action, but with Japan, they're very serious about what kind of shows they want to make, and sometimes 3D kind of destroys it.
I feel like maybe it's just something that haven't worked on that much yet, and maybe in the future it's going to get much, much better as people try to explore more options.
But Lupin the Third First seems like the kind of CG movie that's really telling more than just the story itself. It's telling the industry in Japan that CG got what it takes.
It certainly does, especially when it's directed by Yamazaki. Coming up next, we're going to be going towards the world of gaming and some promises about crossplay and cross-saving. So stay tuned for that.
This is Pulse 95.
Although a lot of people have been saying that cloud gaming is the future of gaming, and I agree with that, but I feel like what is another important aspect of gaming that is often forgotten and I believe is also part of the future of the world of gaming, and that is cross-saves and cross-play.
Yeah, this is something that we are not anticipating as much as we should, because next-gen consoles are coming out in a couple of weeks. We're really, really close.
Yeah.
And the biggest question has arisen to gamers and companies and publishers is, how do you handle cross-saving? Because it's a bit confusing right now in this climate. There's like EA saying that, no, we can't really give you cross-saving, maybe in some select games. Sony as well, they say like your Spider-Man, Marvel Spider-Man with the Marvel Spider-Man remastered on PS5 is not going to have cross-saving. And Ubisoft here even claiming that they're going to have something called a Ubisoft Connect, which is a service that will ensure cross-progression from the current gen to the next gen for all of Ubisoft-based games. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, there is no standard yet for cross-save. It's going to be, you're going to have to be constantly checking, doing your research on every game and see if there's that cross-save feature or not.
But at least I feel like they're just kind of showing us that it is quite possible.
Yeah.
That it is possible and that it can be done. It's just that, why isn't it being done? Is it just extra work, or is it something they do not want to delve into, even though a lot of people now
I think it's just a new challenge that they haven't focused too much on.
I think that's the thing. They should be focusing on it. Because like we said, now that when we talk about consoles, there's a lot of loyalists, for example, Xbox fans, and there's PlayStation fans. But when you take into consideration some of the handheld, if you go backwards and talk about the PSP, the PS Vita, and now the Nintendo Switch, people are buying the Nintendo Switch whether they're PC fans or they're whatever fans they are. It's just something that is handheld, that can be taken, portable, can be taken with you anywhere. So now, like, sometimes I might be playing on my PlayStation, I have the exact same game, I want to play it on my Switch as well. That would just make my life so much easier, and I'm gonna take Crash Bandicoot as an example, because I played it first when it first came out, the remastered version, on my PlayStation, and I went, didn't finish it, obviously. I never finish games, we know that, but I went, well into the game, and then I got it on my Switch, because it's easier to play on your Switch. But I have to start all over again.
Yeah.
So it'll be really convenient for anybody to be able to do that, go back and forth. So, game developers out there, console developers, this is your moment. This is the future. And that is crossplay and cross-saves. We're going to be taking a short break, and we'll be back with our suggestion. We haven't had one for quite a while, so stay tuned. It's super important, involves your car. So if you drive, you should be tuning in right now to the Afternoon Karak.
It's almost 5 p.m.
That was Afternoon Karak.
For dessert,
Aisha and Mikhail suggest...
It's super cool that you're talking about this, because this is something that actually happened and caused an argument between my dad and I, because you wouldn't listen to me.
Oh, really?
In terms of your suggestion. So you go ahead and tell us your suggestion, and I'll tell you the story afterwards.
So my suggestion to all the listeners, even viewers on YouTube, is every once in a while, just take a peek at your mileage sticker that's on the side of your car door, and see if you've gone past the mileage point, because it's very important to know when you have to service service your car and take it for maintenance, because maybe you're past overdue by by weeks, by a month, by maybe 500 kilometers, and that in itself could really ruin your car.
Exactly, and usually sometimes they would call you up and tell you that, hey, you have an appointment very soon, it's been like 3 months or this amount of kilometers, it's time for you to come in. Sometimes they don't call you, so it's up to you to keep up with the sticker.
It's like 3 to 6 months. You might forget
Exactly.
that over time, and maybe you don't even realize that you, instead of putting 5,000 kilometers worth of oil, you only put 2,000.
So keep up with that. It's super important. Now let me tell you my story. So this is before I took my dad's car, because as you know, okay, our listeners don't know, but I did switch cars. I took my dad's car. He doesn't really drive it a lot, so I was like, I like big cars. I'm taking this car. So before that, I didn't know, we've had this car for several years, so I don't know much about, how often we should be servicing it, because my car used to be every 6 months. So I know that in June, I expect a call, and in December, I expect a call. This car, I didn't know much about it. And I remember opening the door once, and I think it was even before I, officially started driving that car. And I saw the mileage sticker, and we were behind by several months. And I told my dad, and he said, no, it's not. I said, yes, it is. He said, no, it's not. I'm like, there's a sticker by the door. Check the sticker. And we kept on arguing until eventually, maybe a couple of weeks later, when he did take the car for a small issue, and he's like, oh, are we over? They're like, yes, you should have been here like back in March.
Oh,
you're in the middle of the summer. What are you talking about? So I'm like, you should listen to me sometimes. Check your mileage sticker. Make sure you're not overdue for a service for your cars. Take care of yourselves and take care of your car.
It doesn't hurt to just do that, Asadia, and it's a little simple suggestion, but obviously will go a long way, especially if you love your car very, very much.
Exactly.
And that is it for the hour, the afternoon Karak.
Yes, it is.
It's been a blast. If you missed out on our review for the Netflix Over the Moon, you can check out our YouTube video when it comes up an hour from now. Also, SoundCloud, Spotify, and what else?
Apple Podcasts.
Apple Podcasts.
Basically, wherever you listen to podcasts. And to continue the moon celebration and to continue the whole, the moon is a piece of cheese conversation, coming up next is a song called Cheesin'.
This is why I love you, Aisha.
Anyway, stay tuned for all of that and much more right here on Pulse 95.
If you liked this episode of Afternoon Karak, drop a like and subscribe.
Pulse 95.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories.